right, we're on in 3, 2, and 1. Welcome to the Golf Podcast Live, brought to you by us. And the reason why I say that today is because we've been trying to raise some money through Patreon. This is our 20th show, and we've got a special guest. I'm your host, Rafael Kalamat, alongside Michael Bleackley, who's in Vancouver. Weather's a lot better out there than it is in Toronto. Lots to talk about today. Phoenix Open. Talk about the 16th hole. Lots of fun things with Higgs and Damon to talk about. Phil Mickelson, Charlie Hoffman, Matt James. Well, hitting some media this weekend. Also, top 10 things that happened and funny and embarrassing golf stories. But before we get started, we have a very special guest. You may know him from being a longtime host of the Golf Channel and signature golf host of 5 Clubs Golf. One of the most recognized voices and figures in the golf industry. I think he has a lot of integrity. So please welcome Gary Williams. Gary, welcome to the show.
Guys, my pleasure. And I tell you, it's first of all, I think it's great to be on with you guys. And beyond that you guys are live, because I had this conversation literally this morning. I was recording, not live, with Trevor Immelman, and that show's going to be available next week on our platform. And we were having this discussion about how much we love live television, because there's no net, and you know, you make mistakes, you shake it off, and you can't call timeouts. You just gotta plow through. So I'm thrilled to be with you guys and talk about conversation that whatever the subject is that we all love, which is something associated with the game.
Thanks, Gary. You know, we're on 15 platforms right now, and you know, thanks to Mike and his company, we're doing pretty good with that. But you know, we always like to start off, because there are millennials and Zetters, or people who are not in tune with the game of golf and don't know who Gary Williams is. So maybe you could let us know about how you got started with golf and where you are today. You know, sort of a Cole's Notes of what's happened in your life from the beginning to where you are now.
But be happy to. You know, I was brought to the game at a very young age. My father was a really good athlete. He was a college baseball player at a high level at the University of Florida. And I played all sports as a kid, but I found that you know, whenever I played a little golf or tried, I got my father's undivided attention. So I started playing and was, you know, a pretty nice junior player, good high school player, did not play at the college level, but wound up becoming a golf professional when I graduated from college. Was lucky enough, I got my Class A membership in the PGA of America, was at several places. My last job was at Seminole Golf Club down in South Florida, which is a very special place. But after 5 years of being in it, I realized that this was not the career that I wanted. I did not want to be a club professional. I'd done some radio in college, was the sports editor of the newspaper. And by happenstance, just got connected with the guy who was the general manager of a cluster of CBS-owned stations in Charlotte, North Carolina, and wound up starting a golf show on the weekends in 1998, and it was kind of just for kicks. And after 9 months, he came to me and said, we want you to do our morning show Monday through Friday, all sports formatted, and we'll give you 3 years to make it work. And I found myself in 1999 doing radio, added television in 2002, started doing football and basketball, added the NFL, the NBA. And then in 2011, I took a job with Golf Channel when they started Morning Drive, and I was one of the original hosts. It was me, Eric Casillas, and Holly Saunders was our update person, and wound up being at Golf Channel for 10 years. Absolutely loved my time there, and left the company at the end of 2020, moved back to Charlotte, and embarked on building something myself with a couple of partners. And in addition to a digital media platform, we're a company that offers other services in the golf industry. But my responsibility is building out this digital platform. So we launched in September. Phil Mickelson was my first guest on my show. We've been very fortunate to have some wonderful guests in the time that I've been on. Since then, we've added some additional hosts to really build out what we hope to be a platform Jay Billis, who's a very well-known golf basketball analyst, or basketball analyst, who's a passionate golfer, has joined us. Gil Hance, the acclaimed design architect. And we just announced today Emma Carpenter, who plays college golf at the University of Minnesota. Is going to cover college golf for us. And we're not done. We've got more additions we're going to be adding soon enough, but I do a couple of shows a week. One of them is a long form of conversation, and I love it. I love doing what you guys are doing, which is having an extended conversation that is not condensed by the pressure of time or circumstance to talk about things at great length. So that's what I'm doing now.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's really cool because I've been a big fan of the morning drive and actually enjoyed doing a little research prior to the show. Just, watch some old videos, you and Bubba Watson going up to an event together, and you're just kind of breaking his balls, so to speak, and just having some good laughs. Like you've got a great sense of humor, so that was fantastic. And best of luck with 5 Clubs podcast so far. Your guest list has been fantastic. So one thing I'm always curious about, because we're all have the same passion with this game, golf, and what is your golf game at right now? Do you play a lot? Are you scratch plus handicap? And I always like to get a sense of the skill level of our guests.
Yeah, those days of being a plus handicap are long gone. My late 20s, I was a plus 1 or 2. And was a nice player, played some section events in the Carolinas and in South Florida. And I always said that there's 2 shots per kid that you add to your life. So I have 2 daughters, so that's 4 shots right there. And now I play about as much as I want to. And, I'm hovering around my index, I think, is 3.9 right now, which I think is kind of generous. But, look, I find myself still to be very competitive while really having modest expectations of myself. And I try to play, like I did a qualifier for the U.S. Senior Amateur last summer, and also did a qualifier for the Carolinas Senior Amateur. I turned 55 last June, so I had no preparation for it, and I plan on. There's a qualifier in April, and I have not played golf since October. The last time I played was at Oakmont, and I took my punishment there, and then and basically taken the winter off. So the game was a nice, respectable scratch game for a while. And now it's 3-4, and there are days that I can still go out there and shoot even par, but by and large I'm in the mid 70s, but still love it and still find that with technology and being in reasonably decent shape, I haven't lost distance yet, and a lot of that is with what we've seen with the advent of all the things in the game over the last 20 years. So like my enjoyment of the game is higher than it's ever been. It's just my ability to score, it keeps diminishing.
Right. Well, we could certainly relate, respectively. I'm 47, Mike is 48. We've been playing and known each other for over 25 years. And so I worked as a golf professional at Royal Montreal Golf Club. I did go the same route you did, working at clubs and, trying my best and then maintaining any type of game while folding shirts and taking care of members is not what I signed up for. I met my wife. It felt fairly stable. Did not go to Florida, and ended up staying in Canada. I was in Montreal at the time. But just to circle back, it's really great that we have this format, that we could actually express ourselves in a way that wouldn't be able to normally. And this brings me to a question that, we talked to Matt Adams and we talked to Len Matisse already, some really great guests who've expressed a lot of things for us. But just to go into the Phoenix Open, and I'm going to put my glasses on because if you could bear with me, I'm just going to read a little bit of what Mr. Charlie Hoffman said. That being him putting his ball falling into the water. For those who are listening or watching at the Phoenix Open, his ball went into the water. And so he made a comment that it's a joke. What a joke. Today, on the 13th hole, I hit my drive in the water and took a drop on the side of a hill that has no grass. Dropped twice and then placed a small turf or grass. Turned around, the ball started rolling into the water. I was under the impression that the USGA had changed the rule. I was wrong. Had to take another penalty for doing still. Mind-blowing that a group of amateurs rule the professional game of golf. I also blame the PGA Tour rules officials for putting out a terrible penalty area line where this could even happen. No accountability at any level here. No protection for the players at all. You wonder why guys are wanting to jump ship and to go play another tour. Players need transparency, protection, and consistency. We don't have that under the current governing bodies. And and this has gone on and on different social media sites. We're talking about thousands of comments that have come through, and I'm just blown away when I look at the comments and I look at people who've said things. It's funny. Trevor Immelman said PIP with a laughing emoji. Fair enough. Nice bounce back. Very, very nice from Rory McIlroy. Bryson DeChambeau said, agree wholeheartedly. Phil Mickelson, I feel ya. I went on to write, Brandel Chambly obviously had many things to say, even wrote an article over on Golf Channel that if you go look that up, it's quite lengthy and it speaks to a lot of detail. I wrote a toxic post by Charlie Hoffman that does nothing for having a reasonable debate. Phil and Bryson sound like spoiled children who are not in touch with reality. Charlie with their comments, nothing wrong with supporting your fellow players, but embarrassing themselves as they obviously have resentment towards the PGA Tour. That has given them everything they have in this life, and that's strange to say the least. I go on to say, for Charlie, a notable, respectable public social media grievance is in place for a guy who has made a boatload of money. Just look at the all-time money list. At the end of the day, he put it in the water, he placed the ball, and he assumed the rule had changed. If I was the tour, call their bluffs, go play another tour. And if this drama is about Pip, then that's the joke. It's sad. There are plenty of players who would love to have the extra spots and a chance to be appreciative. That being said, I am a fan of the players and the tour, and have spent my life in this great game. I support the player rights and the PGA Tour rights equally. Guys, there's got to be a better way. Couldn't contain myself. I'm still a fan to all I mentioned. Let's be civil and not take cheap shots. Gary, I know that was an earful, but I think our listeners have a better understanding of how this unfolded and some of the comments that took place. Your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a lot there, and you could go in a lot of different directions. My reaction to it, and I put out a small little video on our platform, and there were two things in particular that I kind of took umbrage with that he said, and first of all, with respect to the rules themselves, if you want to have a reasonable debate about the merit of certain rules, that's fine. There are reasonable minds can differ on whether certain rules, as they are applied, make more sense than others, or if there is an amendment that potentially could be suggested or proposed, that's fine. But as the rules currently state, to not know the rule, nobody else's responsibility for that is his and his own. And this notion, I've heard this for a long, long time, and in particular over the last 10 years, because of what I think is some vulnerability that the USGA and the RNA have found themselves in the midst of because of some things that have happened with some setups, particularly of the US Open, that has allowed the opening for players to voice criticism. I've always trusted the USGA and the RNA when it comes to the rules, and this refrain that they're amateurs making rules for professionals is laughable. These are expert professional rules makers. That's what they do. They are paid to not only govern the game, and I'm talking specifically about Thomas Pagel, who oversees rules for the USGA, and David Rickman, who oversees rules for the RNA. These people could run circles around most people who have to apply the rules, let alone abide by them as players. The other thing that has happened, I think, and you can wonder about or assess the PGA Tour's reaction to all this. They really haven't reacted at all. What they've done is allow a handful of players who are weighing options potentially, and I think the options are real. I don't know how plausible this league is long term. That's something we can discuss. But the PGA Tour has allowed these players to really kind of embarrass themselves. It's one thing to have some leverage. Everybody wants a little leverage in life. But all they've done is kind of accentuate all the positive things of the PGA Tour that most people at times may have some criticism of. And the media is front and center when it comes to that. I think that the PGA Tour has come out looking quite well without actually doing anything yet. And they provided all the releases to these players to play in the Saudi event. And the last thing I'll say, and we can talk further about this, is this idea of the players need protection. The PGA Tour does more to protect the image of players than any sports entity that I have ever covered. That is the NBA, the National Football League, National Hockey League, Major League Baseball. They don't disclose personal fines that are levied on players. Their pension is healthier, and I've had this conversation with players who play the National Football League for a long time. The envy that other professional athletes have of the pension program that is constructed by virtue of the 501c6 that the PGA Tour has as a charitable organization is the envy of every other professional entity. So they are very well protected, and the application of rules is done in a way that couldn't be more beneficial to the players. So
I agree.
I just think that these guys sometimes maybe pause before hitting send, because I thought what he said, and he actually doubled down on it, saying that by doing that he was providing more transparency as to what the PGA Tour needs to improve. He's on the Player Advisory Council.
Exactly.
Charlie had a bad week. I'll leave it at that.
And WM's his sponsor. Even his post-round interview on Saturday didn't suggest that he was apologetic at all, that he thinks that it's the greatest tour in the world. However, things need to change. Mike?
Yeah. Well, for one, any of us would cut our left hand off to have Charlie Hoffman's golf career. And we all know golf's a hard game. It's full of unfair and potentially lucky bounces. And here is a situation that's a little bit unlucky. And it is his job to know the rules. So he's a professional athlete. So, albeit they're difficult rules, it's like comprehending legal jargon, but he should know the rules, especially that type of situation. Happened to Ricky Fowler before.
That's correct.
The USGA and RNA, as you said, Gary, they are professional rules makers. They don't change rules on a whim. So if you want to put a grievance up, this could be another example paired with Fowler to say, hey, maybe on the next, when we announce more changes, that this rule could be addressed. So there's a lot of quirky rules within golf. Like this, should we be able to pull a ball out of a divot? That everyone was hoping that would be something that's changed, but that's one of those unfair rules of the game. And it's happened to me in tournament play. Did a beautiful drive, and you're like, damn it. But I think, again, like you said, he should have hit pause before sending this email. And I thought he might try to squirm out of it, but he didn't. He did double down on his comments, and which is kind of makes you want to give his head a shake, because he is a director of the Players Association and he speaks for the players, and not all of them want to have that controversial view. And it just makes me think of Sergio. How many times he's had a microphone put in front of him when he gets off a round, he's angry. And something flies out of his mouth that if he had 5 minutes just to gather his thoughts, he might not have had to address the controversy. And then here we are with Charlie Hoffman. I don't think he served anybody by tagging Jay Monahan. Come on, like,
tagging
he's
Saudi golf.
calling them murderous, heinous people. And like, he just said some things that were, every sentence, he dug himself further into the quicksand. And we'll see how he digs himself out of this.
Yeah, and again, I don't need some grand mea culpa from him. I thought that his clarification, which was not really clarifying, his following day statement was kind of confusing. This was not about advancing the betterment of the PGA Tour. It was a guy who was ticked off about getting what he thought was a punitive ruling, again, on a rule that he wasn't even aware as to whether it had or had not changed. And you pointed out that Ricky suffered the same fate a couple of years ago. Again, that these guys, and you can go back to some of the comments from Phil the prior week, they're not, maybe they've never been in this position before, and I don't think that they have really, because there's never been a serious threat as a rival league that's possibly handing down guaranteed contracts with an extraordinary amount of money. And I don't begrudge anybody for going out and making whatever they can make at all. But the manner in which they're going about it has been really clumsy. Clumsy.
It's really strange because we're talking about tradition, we're talking about legacy. Is this really about PIP? Right, making some extra dollars. They're already making enough money, but do you want to be traveling to, the Middle East? Do you want to be traveling all around the world? Do you want to stay within the confines of the United States where the greatest tour is taking place? And this brings me back full circle to Phil Mickelson. I know you have a relationship with him and many people on tour, and I find it difficult to sometimes talk about these things, but maybe we could go about this in a great way. He's made comments about the Saudi League and trying to get footage, how he needs to pay for footage, or gambling issues that may have taken place. But regarding the footage, I mean, there's no other organization like the MLB or the NFL where the player could just grab footage and use it for their own liking. So I don't understand the argument there. He did mention in a tweet on February 8th, he said, "I have not explained all that has transpired over the last 7 months, and I will say that I will go through it very soon." So I don't know if he's going to make an announcement or is it just another ploy of getting some more likes on his Twitter account. But what's your take on some of the things that Phil said specifically about the footage? It's an easier topic, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that, look, he is he's somebody who is, he likes very much to have an opinion on every topic. And at times, and I don't profess to know him exceptionally well, people will tell you that, he wants to prove that he's the smartest guy in every room that he walks into. What I will say is that, look, he's one of the most decorated players of our lifetime. And he finds himself at the age of 51 in what potentially could be a very advantageous financial position. But that being said, back to the point that you were making about media rights and likenesses on imaging. The PGA Tour, like every other professional sports league, owns those rights. They pay for those, and it's very costly. And whether last night Matthew Stafford wanted footage of him in the Super Bowl, he can't just arbitrarily go out and start putting that out into the ether. That is owned by the National Football League. They pay billions of dollars for that, as does the PGA Tour. And so, first of all, when he came on my show, and I did not push back on him because I didn't have the figures myself. He said that, look, there is the amount of money that they have in terms of the media rights. It was X. That was not accurate. And then the other part about the total revenues that are available to players as it pertains to the revenues that the PGA Tour generates, he put it south of 30%.
It's 55, right?
Worth of 50%.
Yeah.
And that runs very commensurate, guys, with all the other revenues that are given back in salaries to all professional athletes in North America. And so there is nothing out of balance at all. Now, they're not unionized like baseball is, like football is, like basketball is, but they don't want to be unionized.
Right.
They like the status of being independent contractors. So his numbers don't add up particularly well. And I think, look, if he wants to go play somewhere else, I'll be curious. But I don't know necessarily how well it serves anybody, and him specifically, if you're going to advance, the narrative as to why you want to do this, if your information is not totally accurate. I'd like to know, because I think it would make for a really healthy discussion as to whether or not these players are being rightfully or adequately compensated. I think that they are, and I don't begrudge anybody for the money that they make. I hope that they can make all they can, and the market bears what they make.
Oh, absolutely. We can't compare MLB, NFL, or NHL salaries and the setup to independent contractors. They're making, if not more money off the golf course, that being the top tier guys. If they have great agents and they're managing their money properly, they certainly can make a lot more money off the golf course too. Whereas I don't think it's the same situation with other athletes in other sports as much. Golf has a certain look and a certain type of credibility that other sports don't. So brands want to associate themselves more with golfers, I find, than other sports.
And I think, if Phil Mickelson went to Jay Monahan and said, look, if you want to compare the impact I have on ticket sales to, Tom Hoagie, well, okay, he has himself an argument. Now, how do you satisfy the imbalance between the actual value of one player to the other? Well, maybe it was long overdue that they did this player impact program, but I would also say this, is that the value of the sponsorship that Phil Mickelson gets by virtue of being on screen much more than the majority of other players is that is, those screen grabs are worth a lot of money. And that is, that's achievement based. It's performance based. All these things are things that make for interesting discussion. But when I come back to this again, the combination of what they're playing for now and the amount of revenue that apparently is given back, it's not out of whack. They are not underpaid. They're not.
Yep.
And their payment is based on performance, and that's what I treasure about golf, and tennis may be one of the only other sports out there that's with an independent contractor athlete, and it would be a shame if we lost that. I don't know how unionization would play out if that was to happen on the PGA Tour, but I think that would be damaging to the brand, and golf, it's a hard game, as we always say, and on the pro level, we're talking about a sliver of the percentage of all the golfers in the world. And so, if you win and you have great success, you're going to get a lot more attention than some of the lesser known players, but that's what you have to work for. So I think it would be damaging if we saw anything break away from the independent contractor.
Yeah, and I think, if we get some clarity and some real defined information on this breakaway league, the notion that they're going to have guaranteed contracts, that they're going to be obligated to play in the number of events that apparently are being proposed. Well, that's a third really of what the PGA Tour schedule is anyway. So it's not like they're really sacrificing anything, and their obligation may actually be less than the total number of events that they generally play in, which with that come benchmarks that a lot of their sponsors have built into these contracts with respect to, how much money you make, do you advance to forget the FedEx Cup playoffs, onto the Tour Championship and all those other areas. That's what I'm interested about. I want to know, what are the guts of this? There's been rumor out there for more than a year now. I'm really interested in seeing, where's the roster? Where are the golf courses? Who's the media partner? What's the format? Are you getting world ranking points? Because right now, it's a lot of talk, but we don't know anything.
Yeah.
That's true. There's no details out there, and by the fact that there isn't much for us to talk about, makes me think they might not have the response from the professionals that they're hoping for.
Well, I think with the DP World Tour coming into effect, Mike and Gary, I think that's changed because now it's a World Tour. I got a hard time saying it because it's I'm so used to saying the European Tour, but the DP World Tour is completely changed. The Asian Tour has made some big steps as well with Greg Norman, and let's keep this a little lighter on the lighter side now. Gary, let's get our viewers and our listeners to get to know you a little bit better. We do something called rapid fire questions. Only 4 questions. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's your favorite food, meal?
I love, I'm going to have it tonight actually for Valentine's Day. I love a good steak. My wife and I love Wagyu beef, but a great New York strip. Give me that, some steamed broccoli, a little spicy macaroni and cheese.
There you go.
I am a steak guy.
Great.
Awesome.
I used to be a steak guy. I'm a vegetarian.
Tonight.
I'm a vegetarian now. It's not my fault. Let's go into favorite music or favorite artist.
I grew up in New Jersey. I mean, when you see Springsteen at Giant Stadium when you're a senior in high school, it throws everything in balance as to the next concert that you see. No, I'm a Bruce guy.
All right. Favorite movie or TV show? Are you binging anything? Have you watched anything recently?
You know what? I have not watched one episode of season 4 of Ozark. Big fan of that particular series. There's so many that, like Ted Lasso, I'm still on season 1. I watch live sporting events.
Yeah.
I find it hard to. Now listen, when I had pneumonia, I binged The West Wing and watched all 7 seasons in 6 days. But favorite movie, we actually recently lost Sidney Poitier. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which, that's an old movie, but that was one of Spencer Tracy's last films, Katharine Hepburn. You can call me an old fart. That movie, and I love movies, but that's my favorite movie.
Awesome. And favorite golf course, I'm going to attach something to this. If you would have an ultimate foursome on a golf course of your choosing, and you could play with anybody, dead or alive, today, what would that foursome look like, and what golf course would you be playing?
My father, who I lost in 2011, my dad and I would be joined by Winston Churchill and Bobby Jones, and we would play National Golf Links out in the Hamptons. National, wow. I don't know necessarily, I don't really have a favorite golf course. I kind of have them in different categories. I've been very fortunate to play a lot of, great and special places. But National has always been the funnest place. The combination of the architecture, the setting, the vibe. Me, Dad, Churchill, and Bobby
Amazing.
Jones at National.
I love it. That's one of the most unique answers that we've gotten so far. I love it.
Yeah, Winston Churchill is a surprise because everyone throws in Arnie and whatnot, and but yeah, that's very cool to hear.
Churchill, look, I don't know that any of us would be playing National Golf Links without Winston Churchill.
Yeah. That's true.
So it's kind of like a lifetime thank you.
People forget that, the historic events that allow us to live our lives right now.
No doubt. With due credit to FDR as well, but Churchill, just his whole life, there was an enormity to the man, his personality. And Bobby Jones, who was so far ahead of he would probably still be ahead of today's times because of his depth.
Yes.
This is somebody who was, he got an engineering degree, got a literature degree from Harvard.
Doctor, lawyer
as well. Jones was a singularly unique person.
Yeah. And it was interesting that he decided to stay as an amateur and didn't chase the pro game, but yet he had, tremendous success throughout golf. So that is really cool to see. Because all of us would love to be pro, but just someone that educated and sticking to the amateur level of the game, and to have all those trophies in 1 year, not in a collective time. So it's amazing.
And if you, to give context to it, with respect to his life decisions, it's akin to Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas walking away from the game right now.
Yeah.
He was 28 years old in 1930 when he felt like the toll that it took on him physically and emotionally and intellectually to prepare for tournaments was too taxing, and he was afraid to embark on the next chapter of his life.
Well, that brings me around to the Open. We're 150 days removed from being at the Open again, and it's the 150th anniversary of the Open at St. Andrews. So that being so special, couple of things. Have you played the course? Your thoughts if Tiger Woods is going to come back? I mean, if there's any place he's going to re-enter the game. Because he sort of goes radio silent these days. We don't hear about him. Then there's some news or press conference, and not since the Hero have we heard anything really about Tiger Woods. And the way he actually played and practiced kind of surprised everybody in the father-son, or I should say parent and child event. Your thoughts on the Open, Tiger Woods, and it being such a special place?
We're going to hear from Tiger this week because he's hosting the Genesis. He's going to be there, and I would imagine he will carve out time. I'm guessing he will go into the booth with Jim Nantz and Nick Faldo. So I think we're ready for kind of like our quarterly update from him. Although this is less than 4 months removed from the last time we heard from him, which, as you mentioned, was the parent-child in December. I think that. Look, we don't know. It's reading of tea leaves as far as when will be next for him. I think the Open Championship, considering where it is, the anniversary, it would be a powerful thing for somebody who completed the career Grand Slam for the first time at the age of 24 in 2000, for him to go back there 22 years later. St. Andrews it's a spiritual place. I've been very fortunate to go there on a handful of occasions. As a matter of fact, for my 50th birthday, in the June of 2016, my wife asked me what did I want for my birthday, and I said I don't want anything. She said no, what do you want? I said I want to walk over that bridge again. Now I didn't say for the last time. I just said I want to walk over that bridge again. So we went there for my birthday, and I played the golf course. I played just one other round. We did other things in and around St. Andrews. The first time I went there, I was with my dad, and I've played the golf course 6 times. It is, wow. It's there's nothing like it. And to play out of town and back into town, to feel the soul of the game of golf, to play holes that were really created by mankind, by nature, and to talk to people who devote their lives to designing golf holes that say you can't learn anything more about the game of golf and how to design golf holes than to simply walk the 18 holes at the old course. I think it's going to be a hell of a week. And I don't care if they shoot 30 under par.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. It's about time. I'm so tired of people saying I don't want to see people shoot so low. It has nothing to do with it. The players have gotten that much better. Technology's gotten better, and they've transcended into a different type of athletic golfer. I've been playing the game now since 30 some odd years. I got back into the game because of Mike. In 1996 of all things, he was my roommate and asked me if I played golf. And I said, "Are you kidding me?" And then we found out that we had a long history of golf when we were younger. But that being said, you've always asked very relevant questions, Gary. When you've had these interviews with whether it's a player or somebody involved in the industry, tell us about your favorite interviews or moments that you've had that you truly cherish.
The one that will never be eclipsed in terms of just what it meant to me as far as the assignment itself, not to mention knowing how rare the opportunity would be for anybody. In the fall of 2015, I was asked to go to the Greenbrier because Gary Player, Lee Trevino, Jack Nicklaus, and Arnold Palmer were going to collaborate on a golf course there called Oakhurst. Mr. Palmer, his health deteriorated not long after that. And for various other reasons, the project itself didn't get off the ground, but I did the last on-camera television interview with the four of them together.
Wow.
And aside from the interview itself, I was lucky enough. Jack Nicklaus asked me that morning. He said, "Would you like a ride home?" And that wasn't in a wood-paneled station wagon. That was on Air Bear. So they were given Mr. Palmer a ride because his plane was being serviced. So I sat on that plane looking across and looking at Nicklaus and Palmer facing each other. But seeing, look, Arnold Palmer was 86 years of age at the time. And the fact is that there was a sense of frailty and vulnerability that the other three were, well aware of. There was a tenderness, but there was also still a competitiveness between the four of them. And to sit and watch the four of them respond to each other, talk about each other with affection and admiration, that interview was the apex of my professional career. I've been very lucky to talk to a lot of people that I admire for various reasons, and probably least of which is their golfing ability. It's more the commitment to the craft. But that particular interview, anytime I talked to Jack Nicklaus, I had him on the show to begin this particular calendar year, and I always find him to be competitive with his answers. He always says, "What are you going to ask me, Gary?" And I'll start to tell him, and then he'll just immediately say, "Oh, just ask me anything." and then you go, and he always wants to give you not the right answer, a good answer.
Right.
I've always appreciated his engagement in talking about the things that I choose to ask him. And look, the players of today, lucky enough to spend time around Rory, Jordan Spieth, found them to be unselfish people in a very selfish sport. They're very good listeners. For two people who have been given opportunities by virtue of the sacrifices their parents made when they were growing up, I find those two to be special mm-hmm. people with special skills, but unselfish in their willingness to listen to others. And the people who administer the game, I think Mike Wan is a game-changing guy. I love talking to him. I think that he is going to do special things with the USGA. Some of that stuff, when you talk about governing the game, can move at a glacial pace, but I think he's going to show an expediency with which he gets things done. I always love talking to him. So that's a handful. And you know what? I would be remiss if I didn't add, I think Michelle Wie has got an ease about her now that didn't formerly exist. I think that she was somebody who had generational talent, but wasn't necessarily somebody who found immediate comfort with being in a spotlight that she was in. I think now, married with a child, I think that she's got an ease about her that is very attractive. So I would add her as well.
No, that's interesting. And how about on the flip side of that spectrum? Let's have some fun with that, because there's some characters out there in the game that, maybe they're villainized, or that's their role, like Patrick Reed, and people, have mixed feelings about him, but I like his place in the game. He's had a few issues with the sand and whatnot we could go through, but and Brooks Koepka's a character who's kind of says what's on the end of his arm without a filter, and but have you had interviews where they've been borderline controversial, or maybe haven't gone so well?
I don't know about necessarily gone poorly. There are certain people that are challenging, and Koepka can be challenging because he is, he postures in a way that can make you feel like that He's not necessarily enjoying himself at all times. That's not an easy situation.
He's defensive.
I've always gotten along well with him, but interviewing him is challenging. I'll tell you somebody who I always struggled with was Jason Duffner, who was, for whatever reason, he was just, his answers were short, and short answers, you better be ready for a follow-up or the next question. And an interview that I did that I was not uncomfortable, but was, a delicate situation. If you guys remember, Ted Bishop, who was removed as the president of the PGA of America in 2014 after the comments that he made about Ian Poulter after Glen Eagles in the Ryder Cup there. I did the first interview with him. He came into the studio, morning drive, and he had been fired. And he was very emotional. He was distraught. And to sit there and ask him pointed questions about his state of mind and the choices that he made. Now, look, I thought it was harsh, that the hand that it was dealt to him. I didn't find it to be a fireable offense myself, but that wasn't my job. My job was to ask him the decisions that he made and the choices that he made to make the comments that he made. But that was a particularly sensitive one. And anytime you talk to people who, like for instance, the USGA, the RNA, when they did the proposed rule changes, and also the Distance Insights report, they are, I think, inherently defensive about the choices and the decisions that they've made, because it affects a lot of people. Everybody who plays the game, and we're talking about tens and tens of millions of people. Those ones are challenging, but I love them. I mean, I love the challenge of doing them.
Mm-hmm.
No, it gives us great topics, and to your point, Michael Wan, bringing in $20 million for the U.S. Open for women, unheard of not only in golf, but in women's sport. I think it's the highest purse in women's sport. Thanks for sharing all your stories about the actual Open and that St. Andrews golf course, playing there yourself and wanting to go out there again. And I'm sure you feel like you want to get out there this year and watch it live. And,
for sure.
Eamon Lynch mentioned today, he says it's it's like a living history of the game. It was really well put. I enjoyed the way that he put that. But you've done so many interviews, and I'll tell you, you've probably had the opportunity to play with some great players also. Are there, have you played with some notable players that our listeners or viewers might want to hear about? And any embarrassing, one of the things we do is, go ahead.
Yeah, I will tell you this, is that when I started to have the opportunity to play with a lot of these accomplished players, I started thinking to myself, my gosh, you've played with a fair number of guys who won major championships, and I have. And, look, playing around a golf with Rory McIlroy is pretty special, and I've had the opportunity to do that. Playing around a golf with Ernie Els was absolutely delightful. First of all, still, just the strike of the golf ball is the integrity with which he still hits a golf ball is next level. I think about, Justin Rose. I was lucky enough to play around with Justin, and he is, again, one of the consummate gentlemen in the game. I think he's earmarked to be a member of the World Golf Hall of Fame. I played a round of golf with Webb Simpson, who, is one of U.S. Open and a players. I played with him in Rhode Island, and it was so much fun because Webb is one of those rare guys that plays golf for a living, and when he's not playing golf for a living, he plays golf.
Nice.
Like, a lot of these guys don't play golf.
Yeah, like Bryson.
Yes. And I've played with Bryson. And I played with Bryson his rookie year. We actually won a Pro-Am together at the RSM at Sea Island. It was me and two of my buddies and Bryson. And one of my friends was left-handed. And on the 12th tee, Bryson said, "Hey, let me have that driver." And I took a video of his tee shot. Now, if I showed that to you, didn't tell you who it was, you would assume that guy was a scratch handicap. That was how good his golf swing was left-handed.
Wow.
So yeah, I've been beyond lucky to play golf with these guys who, and the thing that I find, like for instance, Jordan Spieth would be one. Jordan Spieth obviously hits it great, but his ball flight doesn't look like Rory's. It's not as majestic. It's not as mesmerizing. But what is mesmerizing is that the closer you get to the hole, the less he is of being a human. He's a witch. I'm telling you, his chipping and his putting are not of this world. It's spooky how good he is.
Yeah.
Stuff like that is mind-blowing.
And it's probably puts things into context because you're talking about all these players with a tremendously long game off the tee. I'm sure you told yourself, I don't really play golf. I thought I knew how to play golf. But and that's how I feel every time I go to an event. Because, we're reaching that golden age right now. We're right about at 50 thinking about Champions Tour. But, when you just go to one of these events, you realize how good these guys are. Because every amateur sits there on a couch and says, I could do this. I've hit shots like, you've hit shots like that under very different circumstances. And being a golf teaching professional as well for close to 20 years, it's sort of the thing you need to remind people all the time about how difficult this game is. Because unlike other sports, Mike, you bring this up very well most of the time, about how you can't just go into Yankee Stadium and throw the ball around or hit some shots. You can't go to a court. Golf, lends itself to the public, and this is why it's the greatest game. The greatest game in the world, because you could go and play these golf courses.
About it. And this was great because, and this was after one had done it and prior to the other one having done it, I played a round of golf in the Bahamas with Graham McDowell and Gary Woodland, who now have both won the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. And we played barefooted. And look, you talk about contrasting styles. Graham is a...
Did you say barefooted?
Barefooted.
Oh, okay.
Barefoot, yeah. And Gary Woodland can still hit it 325 in bare feet. But to, first of all, you look at them physically, totally different. You look at their approach, totally different. And Graham has amazing hands, and he's a great tactician. And Woodland is a bona fide athlete, playing the game, and has refined it enough that he's become, obviously a world-class player. But doing it in such a decompressed atmosphere, that was as much fun as you could possibly have. That was great.
Yeah, that'd be a great group. I actually picked Gary Woodland to win the U.S. Open a few years back, so took a lot of heat from. Yeah, when he won, yeah. So I took down the pool amongst my group of friends, and they're all saying, "How the hell did you know he was going to win?" I'm like, "Well, he hits it beautifully off the tee, and this is a driving golf course, so I'm picking him, and it paid off. Didn't change my life financially by any means, but it was still good bragging rights."
Mike, that's funny because Joanna, my wife, picked Bryson to win the U.S. Open when he did, and he wasn't. I just told, just pick any one of these players. Just pick a player because I'm always off. You can't get this right. Every single player on the roster is able to win the event. And that's why week after week, all these betting stats and statistics drive me absolutely bonkers, because I've been trying to figure it out for 20 plus years and I still can't. But only when Tiger was playing. But we always took him out of the pool, right, Mike?
Yeah, 100%. But that's the beauty about golf. Is no matter how good, you have the top 10 players in the world at a particular event, and they could all finish outside the top 25 for that week. And even this week, Scotty Scheffler breaks through and gets his first win. He's been knocking on the door for a while now, and he got it done on the third playoff hole after hitting the bunker off his tee shot. So you don't know with golf, and that is the beauty about this sport. It's so hard to predict.
No, it is, and that's why, look, the infrequency with which we get the best players in the world together, I think it's 10 years ago I was concerned because I thought the disparity, particularly when Tiger was playing a regular schedule, it felt like there was two different tours. There was the Tiger Tour, the events he played in, and the enormity that those events felt like, and every other event. And look, I want him to be playing golf, but the likelihood of him ever playing a regular schedule again is pretty much over. Mm-hmm. But for instance, this week at the Genesis at Riviera, for the first time in the world ranking era, the top 10 players in the world are all in the field at that event. which is again, that's great for the PGA Tour. It's great for professional golf, and we should cherish it because the fact is we really don't get it that often.
No. Yeah. No, that's true, and I mean, all of us could agree that it would have been fantastic that Tiger has been healthy through this last decade, and seeing him in contention with the current, young guns that are out there. Even they're not so young anymore. There's a lot of the guys are getting into their 30s, but the depth of the field is so good, and it's been fantastic golf to watch. But how much better would it be? Throw Tiger in contention once in a while, and I think the audience would just go bananas for it.
Well, we've seen it. I mean, look, I was lucky enough that when he won the Masters in 2019, I walked every step of that final round with his group, and it was one of the great sporting experiences of my life, and I've been very fortunate from a young age. My dad took me everywhere, and even beyond that, that was almost mythical, and he was trading blows with the best of a generation that he spawned. It was the convergence of all these memories that all these players collectively had of being inspired to do what they were doing against somebody who almost probably didn't even feel real to them. Yeah. And here he was doing it, and maybe for the last time. And that was, if you think about it, Schauffele was right there, Cantley was right there, Koepka was right there, obviously Molinari, Tony Finau. It was a rare moment. And when he won at the Zozo, and even I was talking to Trevor Immelman about this today. He said, even though he played so well at the President's Cup and I was on the other side, I was kind of happy because I was just looking at all these players going, see that? See, that guy is the guy that ripped our hearts out for 20 years, and you're getting a small little morsel of it. Yeah. And I'm glad you are, because it'll never, ever compare to what we had to live through. Right. It made us all very wealthy. But he was like, I was thankful they got to see him in full flight for that rare opportunity.
Unfortunately, a lot of players might not feel that same way just because a lot of tournaments were ripped out underneath them. If you were playing in the Tiger Woods era and you got a win in, congratulations, right? Because, Duval and Els, and there's a handful of players that contested with him maybe on a semi-regular basis. And this brings me to my next question, where I find that, what if Tiger goes on the Champions Tour for a while? I've got a feeling that the Champions Tour now with, you got Weir, Leonard, Duval, I mean, a list of a whole bunch of characters, they might get better ratings, and then maybe only then will the younger generation realize how one man almost transcended the sport.
Yeah, not might get better ratings, would get better ratings.
Yeah, I think he will, because the older Tiger, post injury and whatnot, he's been a little more jovial on the golf course, right? When he was younger, it was the killer instinct was there, and he stomped basically all the fields. But how it's been entertaining to see him come out and joke around a little more, and throw some shade at the other golfers. Him and Schauffele had a great little stare down, and Tiger looked at him and said "F off" or something like that, and he's totally joking. But Schauffele had to, take it back and then had a laugh about it. But Tiger would never do any of that stuff. It was, you look you dead in the eyes, and I'm going to crush you, was what he was saying. And
sure.
There was some kind of intimidation factor, Gary. You saw it more than any of us did. I covered the President's Cup back in 2007. I walked with Weir and Woods on that final round, and it was like being at a hockey game. It actually felt like the Phoenix Open on the 16th hole, every hole. When I was on the 18th and standing there, nobody could hear themselves speak. It was so bloody loud, and that's when he put the ball in the water on his tee shot, trying to get over that corner. But just going back to the Champions Tour, we spoke to Rob Labritz, who got his card and is now going to be playing on the Champions Tour. 30 years removed from being a club professional, living that lifestyle and being content and always upkeeping his game, and him finally having the opportunity at the age of 50, I think it really gives a feeling to a lot of people who spent a lot of time in golf that there is a small sliver of hope to go out and do a pre-qualifier and a qualifier. Your feeling on how many people are able to actually qualify through the qualifying process? Only 5 guys actually get their card, and then that being removed altogether on the PGA Tour, where guys would play pre-qualifier, then to go into that brutal 6-round tournament to get their tournament. So many amazing stories and people came out of that. Now the statistics show that not many players did well or even maintained their card, but that's what was unique about the tour, that anybody could go out and play, much like any open where you could go out and do a pre-qualifier, regional, local, and then go to final qualifier. Your thoughts on how many players get the qualifier in Champions Tour and the PGA Tour?
Yeah, first of all, I think the Champions Tour is the hardest tour to get on. You just talked about the finite number of opportunities for players to go through the qualification process. I think Rob Labritz is one of the better stories in recent years for somebody who has devoted his life to really advancing the game at a micro level, at the club pro level, trying to bring enjoyment to people in the culture of the clubs that he has been at. And I wish him, all the best. I've been around that tour a little bit. Went to the event they used to have in Branson, which was, it was the team event, and being around it is, I love seeing those guys. I find they have beaten each other over the heads with 2 irons for the last 40 to 50 years. And yet they're still traveling around this country by and large as a fraternity now, with a sense of gratitude and appreciation for the life that they've been given. And to see, like I saw this morning, Colin Montgomery post a photo as he was getting ready to board a flight at Heathrow to the United States to begin his 8th year on PGA Tour Champions. By the way, let me add him to one of my favorite people to interview. He is a great conversationalist. But I think PGA Tour Champions is in a good place. It's the hardest tour, as I said, to get on. They're still highly competitive players. And as it pertains to the PGA Tour, I still wish they would hold out 5 cards and have that 6-round gauntlet, which is reality television. That is the human drama of athletic competition with abject misery and sheer relief for the players who either fail or achieve to get through that way. I wish they still had an avenue to use Q School to get a handful of cards, because I found it to be as compelling as anything.
Yeah, I thought it was a great tournament to watch because it also happened that the finals was in silly season. So, or what used to be silly season. So it was this high level golf match that we got to watch in 6 rounds. And, it finished off, it was at PGA West, which is, of course, I've played a lot. It's an easy flight from where I live, and it's always my benchmark in the desert to go and see how your game holds up and to watch these guys and live or die by a shot. Like how many just made it in, or if they missed a shot, it really meant something. So
and it would be a great Netflix drama. Be more Netflix drama. It would add so much more to what everybody had to go through. But thanks for sharing that. We're running on 1 hour right now. Mike, any final thoughts before we leave it to Gary with final thoughts?
For one, obviously this show will be available on all of the platforms, Apple and YouTube and social media and Anchor and Stitcher and Gary, you know all these platforms.
Yes, I do.
So it'll be out there and all of that. And we've covered a lot today. And Gary, I think what we haven't heard is, what's your most embarrassing moment on the golf course? This is one of our fun topics that.
I'll tell you what it was. When I was an assistant professional at Seminole, I wasn't a habitual club thrower, but every blue moon I would let one launch. And I was playing late one afternoon with another assistant professional. Seminole at 5 o'clock, it's get out the door. go to your cocktail parties on Palm Beach and Jupiter Island. And so we played a lot of golf at night. So I on the 6th hole, which was one of Hogan's, if not his favorite par 4 anywhere in the world, it's not a driver hole. I hit 3-wood and tugged it and hit it in this big yawning, kind of waist area bunker down the left-hand side. And I was playing well. And it wasn't a violent throw, but it was a nice toss into a palm tree just adjacent to the 6th tee. And that 3-wood stayed up in the tree. Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I can't leave it there. So I, like a little spider monkey, climbed up the tree. This was back in the mid 90s. So I was wearing spikes. So I climbed up the tree and knocked it out of the tree. And about 3 feet of the 18 to 20 feet down the trunk of this palm tree, I lost my grip of my feet and wound up hugging the tree all the way down like I was going down a fire.
Oh, boy.
Now, here's the thing. Only one other person actually witnessed this, but the inside of my arms were so chafed and burned by the abrasion of the tree trunk that I had to wear a sweater in South Florida for the next 2 weeks so that no one could see. And everyone was like, why are you wearing a sweater? It's like 87 degrees.
Right.
Yeah, that would be it.
That's fantastic. Mike and I have shared all of our stories. We're out of stories. After 20 episodes, all our throwing stories, college golf, me tomahawking a 7-iron across a pond, having the Mike throwing it up in the mid-90s. Where was that, Mike? He threw it up in the tree, got stuck in the tree. Mylora, yeah. The next season,
the putter stayed up in the tree
for a year.
Years.
Tremendous.
So that's great. Listen, thanks for sharing, Gary. We value your time and your opinions on everything. We're going to keep track of what you're doing. And do you want to plug your sponsors and where we could find you and where we could see you?
Yeah, I appreciate it. We, like you guys, available Apple, iTunes, Stitcher, Art19, all the Spotify. Some of these I can't even. Some of them are like the same thing. And then we've got a YouTube channel. It's 5 Clubs Golf, the number 5 Clubs Golf, and we're very lucky. We've gotten some great support. We've got some corporate partners: Stansberry Research, Pinehurst, Peter Millar, and Golf Pride are our core partners. And so we are, we're excited about what we're doing. And this young lady, Emma Carpenter, her first show is going to come next week.
Great.
With Cole Hammer, the young man at the University of Texas. She's going to cover college golf for us. She just had her career best finish at an event down in Florida. Shot 69 in the second round. We think she's going to be great at doing that. Plus, stay tuned for Gil Hance's next episode, Jay Billis, and of course mine as well. So thank you guys for taking the time to have me on the show. I really
absolutely. Thank you for taking the time as well, and hopefully your wife isn't waiting too long here for dinner.
No, I am not encroaching upon the Valentine hours, so I'm good.
Fantastic. Gary, one thing in the background on your set, you've got a right-handed golfer holding a left-handed club, or it's either flipped the other way. I'm OCD. It's driving me crazy. There's no, not behind you, either on set. I think there's a golfer and the club is facing upwards. Anyway, it's a small little thing that I kept on looking at during an interview. It was over somebody's shoulder, and I said, "What? That's driving me nuts." In any case,
I say the same thing about Raf's set behind him there.
Oh, this is a mess. It's out of control. All right, for Gary Williams and Michael Bleackley, I'm Rafael Kalamat. You've been listening to the Golf Podcast Live. Thank you to our sponsors, Drinkwell, The Upper Hand Cards and Collectibles, as well as ECS, Evolve Creative Solutions. Until next week, we've got Craig Can coming on March 7th. Looking forward to that. Guys, have a great week. See you soon.
Thank you.
And we're off.
There we go.
Fantastic.
That's amazing, Gary. Thank you so much. Thank
you, guys.
I knew you'd be full of some good stories, and
we could have went on for a good 2 hours, because I could tail off on everything that you said. We're kind of geeks that way when it comes to golf, and I hate jumping onto stats, because then we'll be talking for an hour about something that's somebody might find as minutia. Right? It's so detail oriented, and but I love talking about the history of games. Sharing that with you has been outstanding.
Thank you. Well, listen, I will be sure to pop this, guys. As
That would
soon
be
as I see
greatly
it,
appreciated.
you can count on it. No problem.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
amazing. Yeah, and we'll follow. I've already followed yours on YouTube and all of that, and definitely will help spread the word. And,
Yeah, we'll share
and best of luck. So
Thanks,
we miss you
guys.
on the golf channel. So I'm glad
Thank you.
blow
Yeah,
up
we
this
certainly do.
podcast and wish you all the success with it. And if we're ever North Carolina,